Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the latest in a series of interviews with the authors of the Northwest Independent Writers Association. Today, I'm joined by Christopher James Harris, who's a fantasy author of the young adult Legendary Artifact series. So, your most recent release is the second one in that series, right? Of Hunters and Magi?
Yes, of Hunters and Magi, and just a correction, it is not YA.
Oh, it is not. Oh, okay. I'm
No, it
sorry.
is epic fantasy meant for adults.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that then. Yeah.
No problem.
Oh, yeah. What else can you tell us about these books? About especially the latest one?
The whole series kind of started as a video game, actually. I used to play around with the video game making software. I wanted to make a 16-bit RPG. But the problem with the software is you spend 20 hours making like a scene that's 2 minutes long.
Hmm.
And so it was a very long project over the course of like 5 years, and all the world building and research happened during that. And then during COVID, I actually experienced a significant manic phase. And I wanted to write something about mental health. And I realized, like, oh, I could make a fantasy story with mental health in it. And that would be an interesting kind of twist to fantasy. Because usually, for instance, in like some fantasy like Lord of the Rings, the characters are archetypes. They don't have a lot of, internal dialogue. It's not really character driven, it's more plot driven. So I wanted to write something that was character driven and was dealing with heavier subjects, and the characters have to fight monsters and their own mental health and their mistrust of each other just as much.
Oh,
My
so,
favorite of the two books I have now right now is the second book because my favorite character is in it. Um, Deferred, he's the former god of fire and madness, and he has now been stripped of all his godly powers, but still has all his godly arrogance.
that sounds like a fun character. Okay. And so, how do you deal with the mental health issues that the characters are experiencing in these books? I mean,
So
yeah, how does that
one of
come
the
into play?
characters, one of the characters is getting over a traumatic event, and they're just kind of in that PTSD survival mode for the first half of the book. Um, And then one of the other characters suffers from bipolar disorder, and that's a very big part of his character. And it's a non point of view character. So the point of view characters are trying to figure out what's going on with him when there is no such thing as bipolar in their world, or therapy, or medications. So they're trying to manage his symptoms while trying to keep him focused on their overall mission.
Wow. So, yeah, what has inspired this series? What's Can you tell us a bit about the background of that? So, or was that the video game and the mental health issues,
No, I mean, the
or
biggest
was there
inspiration
more?
was a very not well known manga and anime called
Oh,
Legend of the Legendary Heroes. And like a lot of Japanese manga and anime, it had overtones of nuclear proliferation, where the characters were trying to recover legendary artifacts that would make their nation strong enough that it would be a deterrent for anyone to attack them. And so that's where the video game idea came from. It's like, oh, it'd be really fun to do a fantasy game where they just go and find artifacts and like buff each other up. Because that's one of my favorite things about the old 16-bit RPGs is, oh, I got Mazamune. Oh, I got Muramasa. So I did a bunch of research into artifacts in our mythology, looking at Sumerian, Egyptian, Greek, Irish, Celtic, um, Norse mythology, and having these weapons and items that have these effects that could really change the world. For instance, one of the things that they've trying to recover in book one and book two is a Celtic item called the Horn of Garanhir. And basically, it's a cornucopia that just pour it out and there's tons of food. So in a fantasy world, one of the big things is the protagonist's nation is starving. So just having the ability to create food is game changing.
Right, in unlimited quantities. Then it sounds
Yeah.
like.
And
Okay.
interestingly, you'll find, like, when you look at the mythology, that you have more mythological artifacts like that than you have Excalibur and Muramasa and swords and stuff. It's like a lot of like, oh, this is a boat that has extra dimensional space and can carry an infinite amount of people to some place.
Right. Well, that's very cool sounding. So now, is this a continuing story then between the two books, and will there be a third one as well, or more even?
Yes, it is a
And
continuing story. There are four books planned right now in the main story. And then I am currently working on a novella that happens between book one and book two. And I'm in the editing phase of that. And then there's a sequel to that novella that would be between book two and book three, which I'm writing right now. And the novella has characters that come in book three. Because in book one, the protagonist leaves her homeland for the first time. It's in all this turmoil, has to go recover artifacts, and she's got months to do it. And then one day I was thinking, like, oh, I have these kind of ancillary characters that are in there for a couple seconds in book one. Like, what are they doing while she's gone for a couple months? And so the novella actually turned into a little more of a comedic presence. Um, the protagonist starts to have dreams with the goddess of fate, who's been missing for 400 years. And she's thinking it's because she's overworked and overstressed. And she continues to have these dreams and argues with her conscience, her dream conscience, and tells her best friend about it, who is religious, who then starts to tell other people. And so the protagonist becomes the leader of a cult by accident.
hey, that's all sorts of things happening there. Then, okay, and that'll be between books one, two, and then you have the other one between books two and three. Have you started the book three yet, or when can we expect the next one out, or next
Did
anything?
start book three.
Yes.
It's expensive self-publishing. For book one and two, I
Yeah.
got developmental editors.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want for the main series to be able to hire the same developmental editor. And right now, what I'm trying to do is make enough money to be able to hire the developmental editor for book three. And, I feel less with the novella, there's less pressure to have it as polished. And so I'm hoping that these two novellas I can do cheaper, put them out there, generate a backlist, hopefully start to get some traction.
So you publish all your own books, right? You're an indie publisher, which is what Niwa is an organization of indie publishers. Um, so can you tell us a bit about that process and what do you like about that, about the independent
Um,
publishing as opposed to more traditional style?
so I initially wanted to go traditional, but when my book didn't get picked up, I was like, I like this book too much. I'm gonna self-publish. And I really did not have any idea how expensive that was. And so got a developmental editor, like coughed on how much that was, then copy editors, beta readers. It's just was more expensive than I thought before you even start to get into buying ISBNs and paying you know, cover artists and edit or format layout artists. But the thing I do really like about being self-published is I have 100% control over everything. So I wanted a book trailer. I know they don't sell books, but I wanted a book trailer. So I went and I hired someone to do a book trailer. And that's the type of thing I think if you're traditionally published, your publisher will be like, nah, we're not going to do that. Like, that doesn't make any money.
Right.
Um, and then right now I have book one is being made into an audiobook. And I was able to hire my favorite audiobook narrator to do that, which I'm super excited
Oh,
about. So crazy to hear her read my words. But with the traditional publisher, I wouldn't have had that much control over that. They might have been like, "Oh no, she's too expensive. Let's get someone else," or "We don't think this is the right voice for your book."
mhm.
So having
Yeah.
that 100% control really is fun in indie publishing.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard horror stories of people who don't like their audio narrators. um, and, traditional publishing, the first time they hear them is when the book's done. So, but
Oh wow.
yeah.
Yeah, with
Um,
the indie publish process, I got a 15-minute clip of the narrator reading it and then gave feedback. My feedback was like, well, this 15 minutes you didn't have all the main characters in it. I want to hear all the main characters' voices so I know what they'll sound like. And so then she shot back a 2 minute clip of all the characters' voices. And, it was exciting, really excited for it to come out in a couple months, hopefully.
Yeah. Okay. And that'll be on a couple months, you said. Yeah. So
Hopefully,
great.
yeah.
Yeah. So do you enjoy audiobooks, and what are you listening to now other than that?
Yeah, I wish I read more, but I listen to a ton of audiobooks because I have an hour and a half drive to work, hour and a half drive
Um,
back. So 3 hours in the car right there.
and,
And while working, I'm able to listen to audiobooks. Uh, Recently just powered through the whole Dungeon Crawler Carl series and then listened to it a second time. So very much enjoyed that. And then I moved on to Discount Dan, which is feels like a Dungeon Crawler Carl knockoff.
hmm.
And currently I'm listening to Mirror.exe, which is kind of like if Jason Bourne was happening in the year 3200.
Oh,
So it's sci-fi, a lot of like, virtual reality, cyberspace, but you still have the same idea of like this guy trying to avoid the authorities and trying to figure out what the big mystery is. And that's an indie published book that I got for free from the author in exchange for a review.
let's see. So you also run an event or a series of events called Books and Booze, right?
Yes.
Oh, can you tell us about that one?
So Books and Booze is kind of a low-key uh event where a lot of our authors, it's like their first time doing an author event, first time reading in front of a crowd. It's held at Goodbar in Portland, Oregon. We were trying to do it once a month, but we're moving to a quarterly schedule now. So our next one will be the third Sunday in May. And if any authors are listening to this and interested in doing this, like reach out to me at Books with Christopher on Instagram and we'll get you in for the next event. But the idea of it came from my first event. I went to, sold two books, had my whole setup in my car, and went to my neighborhood bar where I did a lot of writing and editing of my books. And the bartenders asked, like, how did it go? Because, I told everybody I was excited, my first author event. And I was like, I sold two books. It really kind of sucked. And then they were like, why didn't you sell your books here? And I was like, what? I can? They're like, yeah, go set up shop and sell your books in the bar. And so I did, and I moved 12 units that night and,
Oh,
thanked them and said, man, I'd love to do this again. That was so great. And they're like, well, come back next Saturday. And so for a while, I'd just come in on Saturdays and sell books. And, sometimes I sold nothing. Sometimes I'd sell 12, 15 books, you know, while having a couple beers.
very nice. Sounds really cool. And so now you've opened this to other authors coming in and doing meetings and
Yeah, that's the hope.
things.
I mean, we
Yeah.
still need to build a following, get people in
Mhm.
there. But a friend of mine is talking to Coin News right now, so we're hoping we can
Oh,
get a feature in Coin News
awesome.
that would definitely drive some traffic.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, so going back to Niwa, so you've been a member. How long have you been a member of the organization?
I think
Uh,
just about 2 years
okay.
come April.
All right. Can you tell us a bit about the like what useful resources have you found through there, or how has that helped you in your whole indie publishing journey? Yeah.
It is great for finding out when events are, because that was my biggest problem
Mm.
as an author is I'd be looking for events and then I find one and find out that I was 6 months too late to register as a vendor. So with Niwa, I think there's something like 8 to 12 events per Niwa season. I'm not sure, but
It's somewhere around there.
you get the opportunity to find out about all these events, go to the events if you sign up to be one of the people working the booth, sell your books. And if it's an event that you can't make it to, you still can have your books there and you might make a sale or two. Uh, they also a ton of great resources on the Niwa website. I've looked at indie friendly bookstores. I can't remember all of the like little helpful articles I've read though. That was just the latest one I read,
Right.
but it's a great resource. I like first Books and Booze event. We had all Niwa people. It was great to get there and talk to everybody and see everybody's indie publishing journey.
Mhm. Yeah. So, yeah, do you have any other upcoming events? So you've got the one in May with Books and Booze.
I will
Anything else
be
you're going to
doing
be
the
at?
Salem Paper. I will be doing the Salem Paper Arts Festival in April.
Mhm.
I don't know the date off my top of my head. I think it's April 18th, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, and we can link
It's a
both of those
Saturday,
into the
at
video.
least.
Yeah, we'll link more information about both of these in the information on this video when it's up. Um, also, do you have a website or social media where people can find you? And we'll link that as well. But
I'm
go ahead and tell
mostly
us.
active on Instagram at Books with Christopher. I also do have a website, but it's been several months since I updated it. And that's www.bookswithchris.com. So, in addition to writing, I do a lot of reviewing of books. And so that's why I went with Books with Christopher as opposed to Christopher Harris Writes or Christopher Harris Author.
Well, very awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We're getting close to the end of our time here. So, uh, thank you very much. And is there any last minute things you wanted to add to it before we go?
I'd just like to thank you so much, Pat, for conducting these interviews, interviewing me and all the other great authors in Niwa.
All right. Well, thank you, and you're welcome.